Put your headphones on. Turn the volume up a notch. Today we're not telling a myth. Today we're diagnosing that thing that lives inside people as respect, but so often shows up wearing a just stay quiet costume. You know Hera. The second most people hear her name, they slap on the same label. The jealous wife. What a convenient label, right? Reduce a woman to one word, close the file, move on with your life. But Hera is way too official to be explained by jealousy. She's not just a feeling, she's an institution. The Queen of Olympus, the symbol of marriage, unity, order, the invisible constitution inside a relationship. And now the real question, if the constitution is being violated, is that jealousy or is that humiliation? Hera's rage in most versions goes after the wrong target. Zeus does what he does and Zeus doesn't pay. Other women pay. Other children pay. From the outside, it looks like just a villain. But up close, you see one of the most familiar, most painful human mechanisms. Rage doesn't usually go where you want it to. Rage goes where you're allowed to send it. And once you hear that, Hera stops being just a myth. She turns into a mirror. Because this still happens. You get mad at your boss, and then you come home and snap at the people you love. You're furious at your partner, and you dump it on strangers online. You can't talk to the person you actually need to confront, so you disguise it as, this is just who I am. Hera's story starts right there. Zeus is the most powerful figure on Olympus. Power, status, that big ego that thinks it can do whatever it wants. Hera is the queen, but being queen doesn't always mean being powerful. Sometimes being queen means this. You sell order to the world while your own home has none. You teach respect to everyone, but you don't receive it. And the human mind does something strange here. If you admit you're being humiliated, you have to make a decision. If you don't want to make a decision, you shrink it into jealousy. I'm just jealous. No, you're not. You're living inside a system that keeps making you feel small. And admitting that can feel harder than leaving. Hera is often described as the goddess who protects marriage. But protecting a marriage isn't always romantic. Sometimes protecting a marriage is protecting shame, protecting reputation, carrying the weight of, I chose this, I'm living this. So what looks like loyalty from the outside can feel like endurance from the inside. Now bring it to today. Does your relationship actually have boundaries? Or does it only have patience? Boundaries and patience are not the same thing. Patience can be a form of postponing. A boundary is waking up. A boundary isn't screaming, I can only take so much. A boundary is, from here on, there's a cost. Calm, clear. Hera's tragedy is that she often chooses punishment instead of a boundary. And punishment isn't a boundary. Punishment is panic trying to replace protection. Pay attention. I'm not going to sanitize Hera and sell her as some girl boss, because she makes mistakes. Big ones. But inside that mistake, there's a lesson that hits millions of lives. Ready? In any relationship, there are 3 critical moments. Think of them like 3 doors. Every time you reach one, your life can split in 2. First door. Do I talk or do I stay quiet and stockpile it? Silence gets marketed as maturity, but most silence isn't maturity, it's fear. If I speak up, I'll lose. If I speak up, it'll start a fight. If I speak up, they won't love me. And the second those sentences start running your life, dignity turns into negotiation. When Hera faces Zeus, it looks like she has everything. Status, divine power, the crown. But Zeus has a different kind of power. The power to normalize anything. The person who can normalize a violation is the most dangerous person in the room, because one day you wake up and you think, it was always like this. No, it wasn't always like this. You were trained into it. Second door. Is this a boundary or is this a threat? A threat sounds like, if you do that again, I'm done. But you're not done. Because a threat is basically a flimsy bargain. If your words are empty, the threat shrinks you, and the other person feels it. A boundary sounds like, if that happens again, I'm going to do this. There's no control in that sentence, there's clarity. A boundary doesn't try to change them. It protects you. Hera often slips into the threat side. The anger grows, the scene gets bigger, the drama gets louder, but the boundary doesn't grow. And then the relationship stops being between 2 people. It becomes a show, with spectators, with gossip, with reputation. Third door. Am I charging the cost to the right person or the wrong one? This is Hera's most brutal lesson. In the myths, Hera goes after Zeus's lovers, Zeus's children, those women. From the outside, it looks like cruelty. From the inside, it can be something even more uncomfortable, helplessness. Because the real target is Zeus. But making Zeus pay would shake the power balance. And some relationships collapse the second the power balance gets touched. So people avoid confronting the real problem and attack easier targets. Friends, family, random people online, sometimes even themselves. Inside, it sounds like, if I fight the real fight, everything will fall apart. And boundaries start with accepting this. Yes, sometimes it will, and sometimes it should. Hera's dignity is right there. Because dignity isn't protecting everything. Dignity is protecting yourself. The person who tries to protect everything eventually loses themselves. And Hera leaves us with this question. To protect my dignity, who am I burning? Now let's translate Hera into modern language. Hera's energy is, I have dignity. But when people hear dignity, they swing between two extremes. They confuse it with pride, or they confuse it with silence. Pride is, I'm right. Dignity is, I'm not going to betray myself. Silence sometimes looks like, I'm taking the high road. But most of the time it's really, I'm giving up. Hera's dignity shows up when someone keeps living next to disrespect, and then eventually turns into the explosion everyone says they never saw coming. Let's do a tiny test, super simple. You don't have to tell anyone the answers. Just be honest with yourself. 1. In the last month, how many times did you say whatever instead of, I don't want this? 2. Of the things you said whatever to, how many were actually whatever? 3. What are you swallowing the most? Words? Indifference? Disrespect packaged as a joke? Promises that never turn into action? And here's the part people avoid. The stuff you swallow doesn't disappear. It stacks up. In myths, this is like pomegranate seeds in your throat. Hera doesn't have the seeds, but the logic is the same. Everything you swallow pushes you into a new season. And one day you realize the relationship that started like summer feels like winter. And you wake up and you say, when did I get this hard? You didn't get hard. You got full. What makes this Hera episode hit is this. Pull Hera out of the jealous wife cliché and tell her as someone trying to protect dignity but failing to build the boundary correctly. Because that's something everyone lives and almost no one knows how to name. So how do we tell it? Picture this scene. Olympus. Bright. Perfect. Gold everywhere. A display case the whole world stares at. Hera is the most expensive thing in the case. But expensive doesn't always mean valued. Sometimes expensive means everyone expects something from you. Hera has queen on the outside and conflict on the inside. Zeus violates the agreement again. Everyone knows. Everyone stays quiet because power buys silence. And Hera's real wound opens right there. Not just betrayal, but public humiliation. Anyone who's lived that, goddess or human, feels the same thing. Am I being made to look stupid? Once that question shows up, it stops being about love. It becomes about dignity. And dignity dies in a relationship two ways. 1, they shrink you. 2, you keep staying in the place where you're shrinking. Now here's where we level Hera up, because we're going to love the drama, but we're not going to worship it. Hera's 3-step boundary version. Step 1, define it clearly. What exactly hurts me? Because some people call it a boundary when what they really mean is never hurt me. That's not possible. A boundary doesn't erase pain. It defines the violation. Step 2, the consequence. If that happens, what will I do? And here's a rule. The consequence can't be revenge. The consequence has to be protection. Not, if you do that, I won't talk to you. That's punishment, and it's childish. But if that happens again, I won't continue this relationship in the same way. Step 3, consistency. A boundary's value isn't in what you say, it's in what you do. If you say it's fine even once, the other person doesn't take you seriously, and they definitely don't take the rule seriously. Hera's mistake is step 2. She swaps consequence for punishment. Punishment tries to control them. A consequence protects you. Once you get that, the power balance in relationships changes. But let me be real. Understanding it is easier than doing it. Doing it costs something. The chance of being alone, the chance of losing, the chance of people saying you're overreacting. And that's where Hera lives. She's basically the goddess of you're overreacting. The strongest line you can take from Hera into real life is this. My boundary is the price tag on my value. I'm saying price tag because people treat free things carelessly. That's human nature. Don't act shocked. Another thing that makes this episode stick, pull the viewer in personally. Do you have a Zeus type in your life? Someone who never fully finishes anything, never fully owns anything, but always talks you into staying? Someone who promises, then says, you misunderstood. Someone who, the second you set a boundary, hits you with, you've changed? Those people do this. They shift the focus onto your emotion. Not what did I do, but why do you feel that way? And suddenly you're defending your reality. Hera's tragedy can also be read like that. Her reality is constantly up for debate. Because Zeus doesn't just have power, he has narrative power. Whoever controls the story tends to win. So ask yourself, in my relationship, who writes the story? There's a trap in myth telling. It's easy to pick a villain. Paint Zeus as bad man, Hera as victim woman, done. People watch, clap, forget. But the content that actually holds millions isn't a simple moral lesson. People want to see themselves, their contradiction, their mess. That's why we're doing this. We won't make Zeus only evil. We'll make Zeus a pull. We won't make Hera only a victim. We'll make Hera someone with real reasons and real mistakes. Because real relationships look like that. What's Zeus's pull? Charisma, authority, that I've got it energy, the kind of ease people fall for. But that ease often hides one thing, refusing responsibility. Why does Hera stay? Part love, part status, part I can't leave this. Sometimes it's also this, if I leave, I lose. And that sentence is dangerous. My value lives inside this relationship. No, value isn't attached to a relationship. Value is being able to choose without betraying yourself. Now, one more thing that makes an episode strong. Give the viewer an actual tool, not just a story. The Hera Protocol, 3 sentences for boundaries. Sentence 1, observation. When this happens, sentence 2, impact. I feel this, I fall into this. Sentence 3, consequence. If it happens again, I'm going to do this. That's it. No fancy stuff, no softening, no passive-aggressive mess. These sentences don't create drama, they create clarity. And where there's no clarity, people start using emotions as weapons. Once emotions take over, facts disappear. A line that hits hard in this episode is, respect comes before I love you. Because love without boundaries turns into something else. Consumption. People can consume even what they love. That's normal. You're human. You mass-produce mistakes. Now here's a smart move for the second half of the episode. Loop back to the big point. Remember how we said Hera's mistake is charging the cost to the wrong people? Let's come back to that. Say the violator is obvious. But instead of confronting the person who caused the violation, you attack everyone else. Their friends, their family, the people who message them, strangers online, sometimes even yourself. Inside it sounds like, if I confront the real problem, everything will collapse. And boundaries begin with accepting it. Yes, sometimes it will, and sometimes it needs to. This is where Hera's dignity actually shines, because dignity isn't holding everything together. Dignity is holding yourself together. If you try to hold everything together, you eventually lose yourself. And if someone's watching this right now and they feel like Hera in their own life, maybe in a relationship, maybe in family, maybe at work, they're probably carrying this, looking strong on the outside, breaking on the inside. Here's what I want to tell that person. Setting a boundary isn't starting a fight. Setting a boundary is saying yourself out loud. And here's the part nobody says. When you set boundaries, some people will love you less. Some will pull away. Some will tell you, you've changed. That doesn't mean you're wrong. That means you're not free anymore. Hera's queen energy isn't in her crown. It starts the moment she says, I'm not betraying myself. And ironically, people try to do queen energy by getting louder. But a queen is usually quiet and clear. She doesn't produce drama. She produces consequences. Now, a closing question. If Hera was sitting in front of you and you had one sentence to say to her, what would you say? My sentence would be, charge the cost to the right place. Otherwise, you'll burn your own dignity with your own hands. Drop your one sentence to Hera in the comments. And if this episode hit something in you, next time we're talking about this, why do boundaries trigger guilt? Because a lot of people set a boundary and instantly feel like they're the bad one. That's a whole other curse. Today in Hera's mirror, we saw this. This isn't jealousy. This is dignity. And dignity isn't something anyone hands you. It's the sum of the boundaries you enforce.